Welcome to Scandal Water, where the tea is hot and the conversation lively.
Your hosts, Candy
And Ashley,
will discuss a peculiar story somehow related to the entertainment industry. This podcast might not change the world, but it just might satisfy your thirst for an intriguing tale.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Ashley.
hello, Candy.
Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July. You know what I want to do?
What do you want to do?
I want to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Perfect. It sounds like a perfect thing to do today.
It does. It sounds like there could be no impossible part of that plan whatsoever.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Well, we're going to talk a whole lot more about that, aren't we?
I bet we are.
Yes, since our topic today is National Treasure.
National Treasure with our man, Nic Cage.
Nicolas Cage,
Yes.
yes. But you know what? Before we get into National Treasure with Nick, how about we do take just a few minutes to talk about the 4th of July?
Let's do it.
I was going to ask you, what are a few of the family traditions that you all
The
follow?
general get together for a meal, fireworks, you watch them. Sometimes Brian used to have a family reunion on the 4th of July, though the Saturday closest to the 4th of July,
Right.
and they would do a meal, and it would be the reunion, and they'd have fireworks at the end, and it was a big deal.
Yeah. We're kind of the same. I mean, we don't usually have like a big shindig, but we would oftentimes, especially when the kids were younger, do some fireworks, have some ice cream, sparklers, some of those things. I found an article. This is a few years old, but I think it's still relevant. Reader's Digest put out this article focused on the holiday, the 4th of July, and they shared a list of some common 4th of July traditions. Very quickly, we've already named a few. I'll just kind of read right through this. 4th of July fireworks, sparklers, barbecues, backyard games like cornhole or volleyball, 4th of July parades, wearing red, white, and blue,
Right.
creating patriotic crafts, waving mini American flags, traveling on the 4th of July weekend,
Oh.
and shopping, especially taking advantage of 4th of July sales. Those were
Like the mattress sales. Those mattress stores, they look for any reason to put it. President's Day, 4th of July, it's a Tuesday. Come get a mattress.
You woke up this morning.
Yeah. Does your back hurt? Maybe you need a mattress.
Exactly. Well, this article, I found it fascinating. It went on to share a few historical facts about the holiday. And in honor of the 4th of July, I thought maybe you would humor me and let me share a couple of
Of
these.
course I will. I will always humor you.
Well, do you happen to know of any specific little 4th of July?
I know there was a document signed on this day.
Okay.
History joke.
Well, I might have something to share with you
Okay,
about that.
okay.
All right, here we go. We'll get to that in just a second. But according to this article, some colonists celebrated Independence Day during the summer of 1776 by putting on mock funerals for King George III of England, symbolizing the death of the crown's rule over America.
They were savage back then, weren't they?
I mean, they were serious. The first annual commemoration of Independence Day happened on July 4th, 1777 in Philadelphia. John Adams, who of course was our second president and also a founding father, strongly believed that Independence Day should be celebrated on July 2nd. He even refused to attend the 4th of July events because he felt so strongly that they had the wrong day. It needed to be July 2nd. Here's the reason why. Virginia statesman Richard Henry Lee had proposed a motion back in the day for the colonies to declare independence from Britain, and a committee was formed to draft the official independence document, which of course became known as the Declaration of Independence, and it was actually on July 2nd that Lee's motion for independence was approved.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, 2 days later, on July 4th of 1776, that was when the Declaration of Independence was officially adopted, which, in essence, made America a free nation, although, of course, they would have to continue to fight in the Revolutionary War for years until they actually won their independence.
Isn't it not really official until you sign it?
Well, if that's the case, the signing actually took a while. Yeah, that
With the first signature, I don't know. I guess you got to pick a date at some point.
Yeah,
4 is a nice number.
it is.
The 2nd of July or the 4th of July. That sounds more powerful. I don't know. I'm reaching.
You just like the sound of it.
I do.
Well, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, of course, both founding fathers,
They died on the 4th of July.
Yes.
Yeah.
The same.
Within hours.
Yes. 1826. And then 5 years later, in 1831, James Monroe, who was another U.S. president, also died on July 4th. Now, Thomas Jefferson was the first president to celebrate Independence Day at the White House, which occurred in 1801. His celebration featured horse races, parades, food, and drinks, which is not so far off what we do today, actually. Right. And my last little trivia piece from the Reader's Digest was that although the 4th of July has been celebrated every year since 1776, it did not become a federal holiday until 1870, and it did not become a paid holiday for federal employees until 1941.
Ooh, that's a long time. That was right before World War II. Then they probably went, oh, we don't have the money to do that. Never mind. We take it back. No takesy backsy.
Never mind. Yeah. Well, I thought it would be fun to start with a little bit of history because, of course, it's a patriotic holiday, first of all, but also we are leading into a movie which, of course, has incredibly strong historical overtones.
It does have a lot of history. There was a lot of history being thrown at us.
A lot of history, which was fun. I think that was actually one of the selling points of the movie.
It was. I loved it when it came out. And Candy came over a couple nights ago and I cannot say the word rewatch. I have like a little lisp there. We rewatched it together. So that was a fun time too, because we got to kind of commentate. Like,
yes.
What are they, the two little Muppet men? Yeah. We were in our little balcony like, what are you doing, Nick? Like,
Come on.
Come on. That's ridiculous.
I'm going to ask us in a few minutes to share a few of those impressions. Sure. But for right now, just to kind of finish this thought, National Treasure did come out November of 2004. And I was telling Ashley this off mic. As I was doing my research, I kept hitting article after article that was written about the more recent National Treasure show. Did you actually watch that?
I did not. Catherine Zeta-Jones with blonde hair was off-putting to me, so I couldn't. I love her with her dark hair. I don't know. It may have been wonderful. I don't want to besmirch her, but I just nah, come on.
Well, it must not have been too wonderful because it was canceled very quickly.
See, if she'd had her dark hair, I bet it would have
lasted.
It was all about her hair.
I'm sure that was it.
It is.
Well, it was actually a show that Disney created, and they launched it just in December of 2022. It was called National Treasure: Edge of History. And as we've already said, one season, Disney's already canceled it. Justin Bartha and Harvey Keitel both did return from the original cast, but the storyline was very, very different. And I saw a lot of negative reviews. I saw a lot of people who complained that Nic Cage wasn't in it. And the basic thing I think I saw over and over again was this strays too far from the original premise of the film. People wanted, I think,
that
something that
history.
was more, they wanted something more reminiscent of the original.
Yeah, it was just a good time.
Yeah. Well, a summary from a U.S. Weekly article about the movie read this way. Directed by John Turteltaub, National Treasure follows treasure hunter and cryptographer Benjamin Franklin Gates, played by Nicolas Cage, who uncovers a plot to steal the Declaration of Independence. No one at the FBI believes him when he tries to warn the agency of the impending theft.
Because why would you?
Well, true.
Why would you believe him?
So Benjamin takes it upon himself to protect the historical document by stealing it first. And back when this movie first came out in 2004, Roger Ebert essentially called it a Disney-fied Da Vinci Code. And a writer of an Esquire magazine article summarized it by calling it is essentially Indiana Jones meets Ken Burns' America. So that's just a very little tiny intro from a couple of sources back then. Now that we've laid that out there for everyone, what are a few of your thoughts? Do you agree so far with some of these statements that have been made by others?
I kind of do. It's just like, how would you summarize it? You would say it's history, it's fun, it's kind of swashbuckly, and Nic Cage swaggers through the movie.
He does swagger through that movie.
And he just delivers these lines with so much enthusiasm and quippiness, and I think it's so much fun. I don't know. You're just gonna have a good time. It's gonna be 2 hours of history and a really good time.
I totally agree with you. I think the number one descriptor I would pull out of my hat would be the same one you came up with. It's fun.
It's fun.
I really enjoyed it, but I also do agree with the point that these in this case, I guess they were all fellas, that these fellas made, which is, I did feel it was a little hodgepodgey in terms of what is it trying to do?
Yeah.
There were times when I was watching it when I thought, oh, shades of Da Vinci Code. Oh, that kind of reminds me of Ocean 11. Oh, that seems a little Mission Impossible-ish.
Right.
Well, that seemed a little
Right.
Indiana Jones.
It's a nod to every adventure story ever told, all in one movie, and a little bit of history where you go, what? I don't understand. Okay.
And you just go with it.
You just keep watching.
Like literally at one point,
know.
you said, I've stopped taking notes.
did.
And I said, me too.
Yes.
And there was a point when I was kind of like, I'm not even going to try to figure
I
that
don't
clue
know.
out. Somehow that made
Yes.
them realize to go there. Okay,
Yes,
that's fine.
It's good for me.
That's fine.
It's good for me. Pass the popcorn.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. As we've said, the reviewers had a few critiques, right? But on the flip side, this movie was a blockbuster, which is why, by the way, we have chosen to talk about this today. Not
Yes.
only is it something that we felt would be very appropriate in honor of the 4th of July, but our theme for this
Because,
month is...
Candy, what says America more than stealing the Declaration of Independence?
But that's it. Actually, he wasn't stealing it.
He wasn't.
He was protecting it. He was saving
He
it.
was.
They cast him as the hero.
He was.
So his stealing, his theft.
He was Robin
actually-
Hood.
Yes,
He was Robin Hood. There
he
you go.
was. He was the protector.
There's another nod to a film.
Right. But okay, so
Sorry.
back to what we were saying. But the theme for our month is Mission Blockbuster.
Yes.
And so every week this month, we're going to hit on some really incredibly popular blockbusters, this being the first. And here's an intro from a USA Today article that was written just this last December. There is no better line in movie history than, I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
And then it goes on to say, okay, perhaps I'm being a bit facetious, but when Nicolas Cage's character, Benjamin Franklin Gates, uttered those silly, serious words in 2004's National Treasure, it helped turn the film into a cultural touchstone for millennials. Plus, it launched 1,000 memes a decade or so later.
Did. Yes, it did.
So that's one of the things you had mentioned to me.
I did. I'm gonna tattle on my friend. When we were all in the throes of the first few weeks of quarantine, when everybody was like, "What am I gonna do?" We had recently gone to Disney World before everything shut down for my 40th birthday. We had gone, a group of friends had gone, and so she texted me and she's like, "Do you think we could break into Disney World?" And I said, "No, I don't. I don't think
Like,
we could."
no.
So when those
Not a
memes
good
came
idea.
out, I sent her that meme and I said, "This is like that time where you said, I think we could break into Disney World. Nobody's there." I said, I think they are there. I think it is. But we were all going so stir crazy. But that was so funny. It's like that. Yeah, no, we can't.
Nope.
No, it's not going to happen.
I love it. Well, let's talk about getting the film made. So these two people named Oren Aviv and Charles Seegers were the ones who came up with the idea for the film, and they seized upon it. In fact, it was announced back in 1999 that they were going to make this movie, and it was supposed to be released in the year 2000.
Oh,
But back to our point. The original writer, Jim Koff's script was so complex that
I think some of that lingered.
Agreed. Over time, they ended up hiring 8 additional writers to work on it
There's your
between
hodgepodge.
1999 and 2003 to try to get it right. They referred to it as a convoluted plot line.
For sure.
Now, obviously, they got it to where they were happy with it, and when it finally did come out in 2004, director John Turteltaub actually also gave a nice compliment to Nicolas Cage, because he said in a Variety magazine interview that getting Cage was worth the wait. So
Oh, yeah.
I guess because of the time it took to get the
Yeah,
script right, it
yeah.
gave them an opportunity
I
to get
do.
him on board.
I think he's a huge part of this film's success.
100%.
Yeah.
100. I don't think it would be the movie without him.
No. It's like he takes it so seriously, but he yet is also in on the joke. I feel
Yes.
like.
Yes. So true. Well, an interesting side note is that while this was the first time that they had ever collaborated together, Nicolas Cage and the director, John Turteltaub, had actually attended Beverly Hills High School together back in the late 1970s. They had even taken a drama class together.
Nice.
And then, of course, they went on to work together several times after this. In fact, while they were promoting The Sorcerer's Apprentice, later, Nicolas Cage apparently revealed in some kind of a press interview that John, the director, had actually beat him out for the lead role in their high school production of Our Town. which left, of course, John with the lead, but Nicholas with 2 lines of dialogue.
And he still remembers.
Yes, absolutely. So this film, of course, we've already said, John Turteltaub was the director. He was also listed as one of the 2 main producers. Jerry Bruckheimer was the other.
Okay.
And in fact, it is listed, if you look at the movie poster, as a Jerry Bruckheimer production. Piggybacking on what we said, Nicolas Cage shared in an interview with IGN Film Force during a press junket, I believe, why he actually chose to do this film. Ashley, do you mind reading this little blurb from Nicolas Cage?
Sure. What you got to say, Nick? I think the thing that made me trepidatious was the same thing that intrigued me, which was the idea of a man going in and stealing the Declaration of Independence. The fact that he uses both the word trepidatious and intrigue in the same sentence is pretty incredible. Okay, back to Nick. I thought, this doesn't seem very plausible, and how can this actually be pulled off? I'm with you, Nick. I met with John Turteltaub, and he said, but that's what's interesting. He's audacious. He's bold. And Jerry Bruckheimer always brings in a great group of technical advisors to do the research and try to figure out exactly how to make it within the context of the film seem as believable as possible. And I got to do it in a tuxedo, so that was interesting to me as well. I mean, what can you say?
I know. I love it. There's Nic Cage, right? He has to
Yes.
bring in the selling point of getting to wear a tuxedo.
Yeah, when he says, I don't feel like it's very plausible.
I love that. That's
know,
actually why
yeah.
I pulled this quote. I
Yes.
was like, I think that's
It's not impossible. It just doesn't seem plausible.
right.
Yes.
Yes, I love it. Obviously, he had worked with Jerry Bruckheimer before. They had done Con Air together, The
Oh,
Rock,
yeah.
several other
Oh, yeah.
works. So that was a selling point for him too. Well, Nic Cage, of course, had several other co-stars who were very important in this movie. But why don't we take a quick break before we come back and talk about them?
All right.
Happy Independence Day!
Candy, you know what I love more than watching Nic Cage steal the Declaration of Independence?
Ooh, what's that?
Celebrating the 100th episode of Scandal Water.
That is something we're celebrating.
So it's a final reminder that if you'd like to participate in our 100th episode celebration on August 8th, we are looking for comments via email or audio clip from our listeners.
Whether it's your favorite episode, quote, or a feature of the show, we would love to hear why Scandal Water is your cup of tea. And of course, questions are also welcome. We want to hear from you.
So send your emails or audio clips to scandalwaterpodcast@gmail.com by July 11th. That's next Tuesday. Benjamin Franklin Gates would approve.
Cheers. And we're back to talk about the other cast members of National Treasure. You're a fan of
Riley.
Yes.
I'm a fan of Riley because when this film came out in 2004, I had recently gotten a puppy and I had named him Riley. And so this was the first time I'd really seen that name mentioned in a film. And I was like, oh, it's a Riley. It's a Riley. And Riley, my puppy, went on to be my best friend for 15 and a half years before he passed away in 2020 from kidney issues. And I try to always include a character named Riley now in a lot of my work. So I've had a Riley in one of my films, and I've had a Riley in both plays that I co-wrote. Or we say like a mention of a Riley in both plays that I co-wrote,
love
just as a
that.
nod to my little best friend.
Yeah. Well, in the film, the 2 co-stars who almost have equal billing with Nicolas Cage,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think. They are right in the thick of it, this little trio. Diane Kruger plays Abigail Chase, who does turn into an eventual love interest for Ben Gates, and Justin Bartha played his little sidekick, the comic relief, Riley Poole, who was also very tech savvy.
Yeah,
so
I
that
liked
was
him.
kind of his thing. Besides the fact that he was, I thought, a little sarcastic.
Yes.
The one who was
I
kind
liked
of
it
like,
that he
what are
wasn't-
we doing?
I liked it that he wasn't a dumb sidekick. He was just as intelligent as Ben Gates, and he had tech, and he had his own things that he brought to the table, but he was also sort of a realist and saying, this is not going to work. Why are we doing this, guys? We're going to go to prison. We all
Right.
realize that, right?
Yeah, I like that. And I like that Diane Kruger's character, Abigail Chase, she knew her stuff. She knew her history. She was in the thick of it too. So I felt like they were all very important characters.
I like that the fact that they named her Abigail for probably, I don't know, Abigail Adams.
Right,
Most likely.
agree.
And Chase. Come on now.
all the names. all the names. names in this production are so meaningful. Which again, it's almost, I like the phrase used by that one author where they said it was serious, silly.
Yes.
You know, so many things are just
Yes.
kind of on that edge between, is it serious or is it kind of
Do
being
they know
cute?
this is funny? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, something I did enjoy was hearing Nicolas Cage in different interviews talk about the camaraderie between this group of actors. They actually really liked working
Oh,
together.
that's so good.
In his, again, these press junkets, he talked about the fact that both Justin and Diane had wild senses of humor. That was his phrasing, wild senses of humor. He said they were a little mischievous. And he basically, he didn't use the word quirky, but he said that they had that same kind of different humor that he himself had. So I could see where they gelled that way. He talked about the fact that they laughed a lot, and to bond, they would often go out and karaoke together.
That's fun. Can you imagine karaokeing with Nic Cage?
Can
What
you
is he
imagine
going to
being
sing?
in the audience? And, like
Yes.
the three of these people
I bet he
get
sings
up.
an Elvis song. What do you
Oh,
think?
you know it.
Yeah, he
you
did.
know it. Suspicious Minds.
Oh, you think Nic Cage is a suspicious, or do you think he's more of a, hound dog guy? You ain't nothing but.
I see him a little peppy. You know what? He probably does it all.
He does it
He's
all.
Nic
What are we
Cage.
saying?
He's Nic Cage. By the way, the actors in their interviews spoke just as highly of Nic Cage. They really did like each other.
That's great.
Yes. Now, I'm going to give you a few fun facts as I come across them. Justin Bartha actually dated Ashley Olsen from 2007 to 2011, but ended up marrying a different lady in 2014 and having 2 daughters. Diane also had a famous relationship, or a famous partner in a relationship. She dated Joshua Jackson for 10 years.
Wow.
And then ended up moving into a relationship with Norman Reedus.
No kidding.
Yes, with whom she has a daughter.
I did not know they were together.
Right? I was surprised by that as well. So some other cast members. Of course, there was the famous Christopher Plummer.
Yes, I had forgotten he was in it. My
Me
first note is
too.
Christopher Plummer! Exclamation point.
Well, he played Benjamin Franklin Gates' grandfather, John Adams Gates.
Stop it.
No,
That was his
seriously,
name?
that was his name.
Oh my gosh.
And
On the nose.
yeah, and of course that was the exposition, right?
Yeah,
we
yeah,
got
yeah.
to hear everything and get filled in on the back history of the family
Yes,
and
that's
their
what
treasure hunting.
my note says. I have no idea if it's true, but I'm buying what Christopher Plummer is selling. And then I wrote exposition monologue.
Exactly. Exactly. Just a little side note about Christopher Plummer. He continued to act for quite some time after this film.
Up until
In fact,
Knives Out.
Yeah, he did not win his first Oscar until 2012 for his performance in a movie called Beginners, and he passed away at age 91 in February of 2021.
Gosh, he had a great career.
Now, John Voight appeared as Ben's father. Do you remember his name?
No, what is it?
Patrick Henry Gates.
Stop it right now.
Yes, it was a thing. They were trying
I
to
knew it was
establish this family is all about history,
No.
all about treasure hunting. These 2 things this family cared about.
That's all they care about, guys.
Yeah. Well, again, John Voight, of course, he's been in a blue million things, but what do we all know him for?
Deliverance?
Being Angelina Jolie's
Oh.
dad. We also had Harvey Keitel. He played FBI agent Peter Sadusky. And
Oh, at least he had a normal sounding name.
yeah, he's famous. I mean, honestly, I had seen him in so many things, I couldn't even place him. But according to the different articles, his most famous production was Pulp Fiction.
Really?
That's what they said.
Huh.
He's best known for Pulp Fiction. Sean Bean is the one who played the crime boss Ian Howe. And of course, he's the one who initially came up with the idea of stealing the Declaration of Independence.
We knew he was going to be the bad guy.
Of course.
He had blonde hair and it
immediately.
wasn't washed, and we just knew it.
So funny.
And he had on he had on the white coat and they had on 2 dark coats, and I was like, why are you dressed different? Sean Bean.
Had to stand out.
You had to
We
stand
to
out,
watch you.
'cause you're a
Something's-
traitor.
Something's happening with
Yep.
you. Yeah.
We just know it.
So an interesting note about Sean Bean is that it's one of the National Treasure was one of the few movies in which he
didn't
didn't
die.
die. Did you see that about him?
No, I just knew that. Yes.
He has been
He
killed
dies.
in film and on TV 23 times. They said his most notable death scene was as Ned Stark in the first season of Game of Thrones.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how they used to say, Sean Bean's in it, his character's going to die.
I did not. I've never
Yeah.
heard that before.
You hadn't? Yes.
It totally took me by surprise.
Yes.
But I thought it was funny.
He's got a cool name, too.
Sean Bean.
Because
Wonder
it's
if a
spelled like
stage
Scene
name.
Bean, isn't it? Seanbean?
Yeah. Well, some filming locations. They did film primarily in Washington, New York, Philadelphia, and Utah. Several scenes were filmed on location, but there were, of course, exceptions. I'll give you just a few. For the scene where Nicolas Cage's character is supposed to run across the roof of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, they actually shot that at Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California, where Walter Knott had built a perfect replica of Independence Hall.
What?
And of course, yes, he built it back in the 1960s, and they decided it probably wouldn't go over to try to do this on the real Independence Hall.
Yeah.
So
It wouldn't be
they
plausible.
they got permission from Knott's Berry Farm to do it there.
Nice.
Yeah. And the Arctic scene was actually filmed in Utah.
Okay, yeah, because that's another note I made. They're in Antarctica, and he didn't have gloves on. Do you remember that moment where he
Right.
was like, when he pricked his thumb and he had the perfect blood? It's like, you would be frozen. It's Antarctica.
Not believable.
That's when you know you're just in for a ride. This
Yep.
is just a ride.
Don't-
Just enjoy it.
Don't think too hard.
Raise your arms and go, woohoo.
Yes.
It's a ride.
Well, one last little note. The interior of Trinity Church was actually filmed in the First Congregational Church of Los Angeles. In keeping with our focus on history, I found a few interesting pieces of trivia that relate to some of the clues or some of the happenings in the movie. Is it okay if I share those?
You know my brain is nothing but trivia, so let's add to it.
Okay.
Add to my brain sauce.
Here we go. Well, of course, a big plot point is that supposedly this treasure has been hidden by the Freemasons. There is actually accuracy in saying that some of these founding members, these founding fathers, might have been Freemasons. In fact, saw in the research.
George Washington was, right?
I believe he was one of them. Of the 55 men who signed the Declaration of Independence, at least 9 were Freemasons. Benjamin Franklin is another one who, for a fact, was a Freemason. One of Nicolas Cage's clues, as Ben Gates, was he had to read the time on the clock that was depicted on the back of that $100 bill. It was on the Independence Hall. Do you remember that?
The part with daylight savings?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I figured that clue out. That's the one I figured out. I was like, daylight savings, yes.
Well, apparently, the bills that were in circulation at the time of this movie really did have an illustration that pointed to that exact hour and minute. Although, a couple of the sources said that the time, according to the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, is supposed to really be 4:10. But another person writing an article says, no, the hand pointing to the 2 definitely appears to be shorter. So the shorter one. So they've kind of gone back and forth about the time. But again, the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing believes that it was supposed to be 4:10, and people have speculated that it might be because it could be a reference to April 10th, which is the 100th day of the year. But in the 2009 redesign of the bill, they actually changed the time to 10:30, and the Treasury Department has given no reason. Nobody knows why.
Maybe that's the ideal start day for the workday.
Who knows?
I don't know, 10:30. Let's go to work at 10:30. That's what time we start podcasting. That's our ideal start time.
That is so true.
Yeah, 10:30. It's a great time.
It is a good time.
Get all your morning chores done. You're ready to get down and work. It's great. I approve. Thanks for asking, guys. That's my big
Now
secret.
give us one of those $100 bills.
Yeah.
Well, last little piece of trivia. Although there is obviously not a real treasure map on the back of the
What?
Declaration of Independence,
Candy.
there is something hidden there.
What?
Upside down, near the bottom of the document, there is this writing that reads, quote, Original Declaration of Independence dated 4th July, 1776. And the reason it's there, it's kind of faint, but you can make it out, is because before it was placed behind bulletproof titanium at the National Archives building, it was rolled up and carried around by the Second Continental Congress, and that was the text that they used as their label.
Wow.
I know. I thought that was cool.
That is cool. That's one of my favorite scenes in the film, is where he goes and that lady says, "Are you trying to steal that?" And he has to buy it and he doesn't have enough money. So she's like, "We take Visa."
Which is funny because I actually did have that thought. I was like, oh, now there's going to be a record.
There's going to be a record. That's your true crime. That's your true crime coming through.
It was a funny moment, but I was like, there's
They're going to catch you. They're going to find your address, which is what they did.
Right. That's right. Well, the impact of the movie, as we've said, it was not a critical success. It took some heat from the reviews. In fact, I'm going to ask you to read another little excerpt from Roger Ebert's review that was written back in 2004. By the way, the title of his review was Clueless Caper Just Fool's Gold.
Roger. Okay. Roger says, Cage, one of my favorite actors, well, that's good, is ideal for this caper because he has the ability to seem uncontrollably enthusiastic about almost anything. That is really accurate. Harvey Keitel, who plays FBI agent Sandusky, falls back on his ability to seem grim about almost anything. John Voight calls on his skill at seeming sincere at the drop of a pen. Diane Kruger has a foreign accent, even though she is a national archivist, so that our eyes can mist at the thought of her in the land of opportunity. Even a person with a foreign accent can become the national archivist. National Treasure is so silly that the Monty Python version could use the same screenplay line for line. So I feel like, did he like it, or was he like...
Oh, he was tough on it. He was saying it was, I think he used a word like ludicrous perhaps at one point.
Okay.
I mean, he was hard on it. Some of the reviews ripped this thing apart. And, you know, with reviews coming in like that, people were also not expecting it to do well at the box office. Another factor was there was a lot of competition. There were a lot of movies out at this time. One of them that was coming out right at the same time was a SpongeBob movie. So a lot of the competition was family friendly, and they did not think that National Treasure was going to really do that well. But all the notes said that it shattered everybody's expectations. In its opening weekend, it took in $35.1 million, which was enough to take it to the top of the North American box office. And what they realized was National Treasure had more immediate appeal to teenagers and adult than those other those other family movies that were in competition. In fact, they did their little analysis and they realized that families made up only 24% of their opening weekend audience.
It's a great date movie.
Yeah, the adults and the teenagers wanted to go see this, right? So another little bonus was that this was the biggest ever debut for a movie for Nicolas Cage at that time.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Even with the Rock and Con Air?
That's what it said. Huh. So, I mean, debut, right? And
sure.
over time, it may have done better. But rather than kind of fade away after this great opening weekend, it actually started to pick up. It went on to exceed 170 million domestically and 347 million worldwide. All of this is a surprise. All of this is like, woohoo.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And it led Disney to decide, yeah, we'll do a sequel.
I remember liking the sequel even more.
That came up a lot. A lot of people said that the sequel was better, which is unusual, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The sequel would turn out to be National Treasure Book of Secrets, which came out in theaters in December of 2007. And to your point, it was even more successful than the first movie. And in fact, Nicolas Cage had never done a sequel before. So what made him sign on? Well, here's something that he said, a quote from him when he was giving a little press conference in 2007 when this sequel came out. I wanted to make sure that we could go in a direction that would raise the stakes and also hopefully be more interesting. They said, we have to ratchet it up from stealing the Declaration of Independence. So we thought you should kidnap the President of the United States. I got nervous. Then I started thinking about it.
It wasn't plausible.
Well, here's what he says. And I started laughing. And I realized that that was the joy of it. That it was funny and it was absurd.
Yes.
That to me, I think that's what we keep saying.
Yes.
They lean into it. They lean into it.
Take it serious, but know it's implausible and know that it's just absurd and weird. Just like I said, we're on the roller coaster with you.
Yes. It's just the fun of it.
Yes.
Just stop being critical. Stop trying to think too much. Just enjoy this.
It's not the Da Vinci Code. It's National Treasure.
Exactly.
Nic Cage is a national treasure.
He is.
Just say that right now.
Yeah. Well, some of the other impacts. Both the original movie and the 2000 sequel contributed to an uptick in attendance at the National Archives in Washington, D.C.
Yes, because one of my notes, it says what Night at the Museum and National Treasure teaches us is learn your history, kids.
Yeah.
Learn your history.
Yeah, they started getting more visits to other historical places as well. That's one of the huge things is people enjoyed the history and learning more about the history. And of course, as we've said, it led to that sequel. It did not, however, as of yet, lead to a third
film. I
film.
wonder why, especially since the second one was even more popular.
That's been an interesting point. I saw so many articles that talked about this and people speculating about why. You'll recall when we did that one episode where Nic Cage
Had his tax issues?
Yes.
Yeah.
Remember, he felt that he'd been a bit abandoned.
Yeah.
Did not feel like really
Supported
supported him.
him, right.
So there was that
Okay.
point that we had seen at one point. Nic Cage in 2016 had a quote where he talked about basically maybe the fact that trying to come up with a plot, a script, is a hard thing to do when you have a movie like this. Maybe that's slowing things down. Lots of different things have been discussed, but as of right now, we do not have a third film in the making. And then, of course, they had this Disney project that they did instead.
Right. You know, I wonder something else. Okay, we may be hopping in our armchair pretty too soon, but this, maybe we can discuss it more in an armchair, but this just occurred to me, is when we watched that first one, there was no cell phones and there was old tech. It was 2004. They used HP computers. So I wonder if, as technology has advanced, if doing these kind of fun, heisty things are going to be proven even more impossible by the advancement of technology. You know, because when this was released, we also, as an audience, would not have had most of us wouldn't have had like really high-tech cell phones at the time.
Right.
So it was more believable back then, and now it's going to be less and less believable.
Right. Or to kind of flip that around, in order to make your audience believe it, it becomes that much more complicated for your script writer to come up with something.
Right.
Yeah.
The only way they could get around
challenge.
that, and you can take this idea, National Treasure writers, is time travel. You can have that. You all go back in time. I'm serious. Nic Cage going back in time, and he's really at the time of the founding fathers.
Okay, that's kind of fun.
Right?
That's kind of
I
fun.
love it.
Even if you could maybe you could just have like flashbacks and Nicolas Cage could play one of
Benjamin
his
Franklin.
He could play one of his ancestors
Yes.
and he could like be in those. That could be fun too.
There you go. We're doing all the work for you guys.
Come on.
Come on.
We're laying it down. Pick it up.
We'll take 1%. We'll take 1% of the gross like they do at the end of
the end of the
National
movie.
Treasure.
You
We could have had 10%, but we'll settle for 1.
Armchair psychologist.
You said maybe we're armchairing too early, but honestly, I was getting ready to move into
great.
the armchair,
All right.
and I like your question. We can talk more about that.
Okay.
I was simply going to ask you, with everybody talking about how ridiculous this is, they use words like ludicrous and comparing it to Monty Python, and Nicolas Cage himself uses the word absurd. Why do we want the third movie so badly? Why? I mean, I'm telling you, there were so many articles where people were asking, where is this movie? Why hasn't it come out yet? We want Nic Cage in it.
Because we need fun. We still need fun. Everything that we've been through in our world, in our life, we need those things that take us out of it, and that we can just settle in and know that we're in good hands with Mr. Cage and just have fun and just be along for the journey. You know, I keep using that analogy of we're on the roller coaster, and when you get on a roller coaster, you don't expect anything significant. You just know you're going to go up and down. Things are going to go well. You're going to go around some curves, but at the end of it, you're just going to be like, well, that was a great ride, you know?
And I agree with you. I'm going to be honest. I really like a tightly woven plot. Like, if these script writers could come up with a third movie script that is really plausible and has, like, I like a clever, intelligent, well thought out script. If y'all can do that, please come up with a really wonderful script.
We've done half the work already. Time travel, Nicolas Cage playing one of his ancestors. Get somebody else in there. What other founding George Washington Gates? Where's he at? Like
we need him.
We need him.
Yeah, but back to my point. I think what sells this, both of these, I haven't, we didn't watch the sequel. We're focusing in on the first movie, obviously, but I think what sells this franchise is the fact that Nicolas Cage is amazing in this. We love him. We love the humor. We love the sidekick.
Riley.
Justin Bartha is a wonderful sidekick. The humor of this movie is incredibly important. Yeah. And I think we are caught up in the history. Like every single American goes through 8th grade, U.S. history class, and you do something in high school. And I mean, like they're pulling out all of these names and people and events that we can all relate to. And it makes it that much more intriguing, especially when then you layer in secrets and conspiracies.
Who doesn't like that stuff?
Right. And then you layer in the adventure elements and these ideas of doing the impossible thing. Like it's got everything we like.
Right.
It's got everything we like in a fun action adventure movie.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no losing.
Exactly. So it sounds like we are both voting
for National Treasure 3.
Yeah, you all get on
Book
that.
of More Secrets.
With George Washington Gates.
George Washington Gates. And maybe they also hop around in time a la Quantum Leap, and they try to stop the assassination of Abraham Lincoln.
Oh.
You know? I mean, come on. And I'm just sitting in a room and I'm giving these ideas out to the ether. Come on now. I know you guys can come up with something.
Well, on that note, how about we end our July 4th episode with a huge shout out to Nicolas Cage, John Turteltaub, Jerry Bruckheimer, all the people, Justin Bartha, Diane Kruger, everyone involved with this franchise, with this project. Cheers to you guys.
You're all a national treasure. Cheers.
If you love what we do, please rate and review our show. Or you can become a supporter by making a donation through buymeacoffee.com/scandalwaterpod. Whether a single gift or a recurring monthly donation, it would go a long way towards supporting our work and allowing us to keep the tea brewing.
At our website, www.scandalwaterpodcast.com, you can submit questions or your own story ideas, access our sources and show notes, see the merch we offer for sale, and more. You can join the Scandal Water community through our Scandal Water Podcast Facebook page or follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Scandal Water Podcast.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown.
That's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music. Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reith, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening. The first annual commemoration of Independence Day happened on July 4th,
1905. They just waited a real long time.